You might not be aware of the very, very deadly terrorist attack that took place in Baga, a fishing community in the northeast of Nigeria, in which as many as 2,000 civilians were slaughtered in attacks last weekend, the January the 3rd, and thousands were displaced. Rather, the one news which you probably have heard is the Charlie Hebdo magazine attack, in which about 12 people died and which has topped global headlines and has won all the solidarity and attention of the international community. So the question that we are trying to look into is, why is it that 2,000 people and counting as Boko Haram continues to ravage communities in Nigeria? Why should such a number of people in an event which thus far is the most deadly single act of terrorism in the last 10 years, why should such an action fail to attract global media attention and media condemnation from the global leading authorities? That is something that is definitely very, very troubling. Do black lives simply not matter? What is the value of a black life? Why do we not hear the President of the United States of America, who happens to be mixed racial, why do we not hear him condemning and bringing attention to the genocide that is happening in Africa's most populous and largest nation? What and why is there a global media blackout on this topic? Why is it not even among the headlines on CNN today? 2,000 people were killed, and it is just entering media headlines 1 week later. I'm just seeing this right now as we speak. 1 week later, this event happened on January the 3rd, and 1 week later is it hitting global headlines. What is the value of black lives? One of the reasons why this is not attracting the attention and condemnation that we should expect in our world today is because of the leadership of Nigeria. The president of Nigeria, since the attack, rather, as reported in the BBC on the 8th of January, condemned the attacks in Paris, which of course is a good thing, but failed and has thus far failed to condemn or even comment on the attack in Nigeria. BBC reported and took pictures of the president of Nigeria on his campaign trail and, quoting, said, while President Goodluck Jonathan, who is seeking re-election next month, has condemned the attack on a French satirical magazine in Paris as dastardly, he has not commented on the violence at home. This is obviously one of the reasons why Nigeria is in its current predicament. Nigeria is what is called a young democracy. By virtue of being a democracy, the global powers that be allow and support atrocities to go on unchecked without bringing the hammer hard on leaders who fail woefully on all criteria of providing their people the fundamentals of human existence and human rights. So once you are under a government that claims and presents itself to be a democracy, no matter the atrocities that happen under your regime that might not happen under dictatorial and military regimes, you get overlooked, and the global community pretends to ignore these types of massacres and genocides that are happening under your watch. Since the president of Nigeria, Goodluck Jonathan, got into power in 2010, an estimated 100,000 Nigerians have been killed by a group of ragtag Boko Haram terrorists who used to hide in the jungle and come out and were able to successfully continue to perpetrate their massacres on the Muslim predominant populations of the north of the country. And the world has failed thus far, quoting or referring to today's date, the 1st of January 2015, the 10th of January 2015, the world has failed to sanction this leader who has had the control of the nation's purse and has claimed to have committed whopping sums of as much as $20 billion to the war against this group of ragtag jungle hiding terrorists, and has failed to put any significant dent on them. And rather than show compassion towards his people, as can be seen here, the president of Nigeria was seen on the campaign trail after the attacks in Baga, which he failed to comment on, condemning and making baseless accusations, claiming that some event that happened in 2010 was targeted to assassinate him, without showing any compassion for 2,000 Nigerians who just got assassinated in the northeast by terrorists who are still there and still operational and still continuing their pogrom in that part of the country. Watch him.
Oka was procured by some Nigerians to assassinate me. And Oka bombed Abuja. The attempt was to assassinate me, but intelligence investigation from South African intelligence system and Nigerian intelligence system roped him in that plan to assassinate me, and it's now in jail in South Africa.
President Goodluck Jonathan declares in front of national television cameras that men didn't do it. He declares that some elements were hiding under the shadows of the group to perpetrate these attacks.
People just use the name of men to camouflage criminality and terrorism. They are just similar to the commercial kidnapping taking place in.
Interestingly, in this video clip put up by Sahara reporters on January 8th, the president can be seen here where he exonerated the same terrorists in 2010 of having carried out the act that now in 2015 he accused them of. So we see where the world watches where Nigeria has a leader who assumes and pretends to be a democratic leader, and he is directly and indirectly facilitating one of the greatest events of ethnic cleansing in the world, and the whole world looks on. Now, of particular interest is Baga. Baga, the community which just got 2,000 people massacred and entirely with the entire community being razed, burned to the ground, is a serial recipient of these types of terrorist and army terrorism destruction. In April of 2013, the Nigerian army purportedly trying to flush out terrorists burned down this very same peasant fishing town. These satellite images purport to show the effects of the type of weapons, the type of fire that burned down this entire village, which was the weapons. This what we are looking at was done by the Nigerian army and not even the terrorists, under the pretense of pursuing terrorists in this community. Nigerian army has been accused by Amnesty International of burning down Baga in atrocities, human rights atrocities, which have made it impossible for this government to procure weapons from United States. So we see a situation where a government, a so-called democratic government, has been accused of human rights violations, very strongly accused of violations, has committed visible atrocities on this very same community, and then this recovering community, this government has again failed to protect that recovering community and allowed, despite the resource which has allegedly been allocated to this war from the nation's budget, has allowed terrorists to burn down the very same community and yet escapes international condemnation. Then we have to ask ourselves the question, what is the dividend of democracy? What is the value of Nigeria being a part of an international community that watches the country undergo genocides and massacres, either perpetrated by its government or supervised by its very same government? Very recently, we saw the Nigerian government declare a scam ceasefire in which they told the army to stand down and watched terrorists take over an entire half of a state and continue to perpetrate massacres in another state. Until date, the Nigerian government has not apologized, as little as apologized for that ceasefire scam. And very importantly, the global community has failed to condemn Nigeria, has failed to impose sanctions on this leadership, which continues to allow and supervise and permit massacres of its people, which continues not to allow its people the fundamental right of security and then the fundamental right to arm themselves and defend themselves, which continues to usurp funds meant for kitting the Nigerian army to properly execute their duties, which continues to rather sentence its soldiers to death for protesting, being given poor equipment and sent on suicidal missions to their death. Where is the global community? This is the question that we need to ask ourselves. We all stood in solidarity with the United States when about 3,000 American citizens were killed in the terrorist attacks of September 11. The question now that we ask is, where is the United States? In the words of the former president of America, George Bush, you are either with us or against us. Where is the United States? Where is Great Britain? Where is the United Nations as Nigeria faces this permitted and tolerated massacre, Holocaust, terrorist Holocaust, which is permitted by our government? And why is this being permitted? and tolerated by the governments and global associations that are in control of happenings in this world today.